I actually think hip hop is the original lean startup. We've always taken technology and machines and actually put soul into it. It's not like that you can just use Udio and just make a song. It's that you have the sensibility to prompt it because you have taste. Yo, when the show's over, go in the back and go get our prompt. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be that.
Slinging prompts on the street corner. Yo, I got some Claude prompts over here. I got some Gemini prompts over here.
I think if you're not moving at the pace of culture right now, you're really in trouble.
Welcome to Life with Machines, a show about how to be human in the age of AI. Shout out to the folks at Lenovo for sponsoring us. I'm your host, Baratunde Thurston, and today's episode is about AI, culture, and creativity. Why are hip-hop artists more open to co-creating with AI than others? How is AI redefining the nature of stardom? And for the business of entertainment, is AI providing a healthy shakeup or just another shakedown? I'm going to explore all this with my guest, the visionary media entrepreneur and my homie, James Andrews. As an executive at Columbia Records, James helped develop the careers of Destiny's Child, Nas, and so many others. He was a pioneer in recognizing the importance of artists having and owning their digital presence as far back as the 90s. James is also the founder of Creator Mode Studios, a Web3 and AI venture studio where he spearheaded the development of an AI digital twin by and for DJ Jazzy Jeff. Blair, are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm so ready for this. Let's go.
I think you meant let's go. James, what's up, man? Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Life with Machine Studio.
Man, this is an honor to be living this life with this machine.
Tell me about just how you're feeling lately. I want to just drop in on you. What's up?
I feel like I have more time to be creative and to explore my personal development, and I'm less public and more hunkered down in my own networks.
Yeah.
So sort of we're in what we call Web 2.5.2.
Is that what we call it?
That's what we call it in my shop.
Apparently it's Web 2.5.2.
Yes,
we call it that,
that's
right?
Exactly.
What is your first memory with technology? Can you tell me about your early life with machines?
Yeah, it was 84, 85. Two memories stand out for me. I went to Jordan Junior High School in Palo Alto.
Okay.
And I was a computer tutor. And we were learning about computers in 85. 84, 85, 86, my aunt bought me a Commodore VIC-20. And I would program games for fun. And the next memory would be somewhere around the same period, Meyer or Green Library, Stanford University, where I saw one computer talk to another computer, and they told me this was this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm blessed to have grown up in a place that technology was all around us.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, like I knew thugs who like wrote code, you know what I mean?
Okay, wait. Tell me about the thugs who wrote code.
Well, no, it just seems like I grew up in a place where everyone's dad was an engineer, everyone's parents were in engineering, they were tinkerers, everyone had garage projects. There were all these interesting people that used to, they were like people that were clearly like homeless walking around University Avenue in Palo Alto that had been working on future technology things. I remember like the people meeting in these sort of homebrew clubs that Steve Jobs talks about. Reading Jobs' biography is crazy because that's basically where I grew up, and his house was around the corner from my junior high school.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, but I never really thought about technology beyond the 84, 85, 86, becoming what it becomes.
Yeah.
It just always was there.
Was it in your house as well? You described people's parents being engineers. What about your own parents and living in your household?
I lived with my aunt.
Okay.
I moved from Oakland to move to Palo Alto. I lived with my aunt who had what you would call a branding agency.
I'm sorry, you moved to live with your aunt in Palo Alto. Were you the Fresh Prince of Palo Alto?
I kind of am. I definitely, it was very much moving from Oakland to Palo Alto was definitely a Fresh Prince move. And then the last thing I remember is this is really interesting. My English teacher is a woman named Esther Wojcicki. She had two daughters, one named Susan.
And one named Anne. Yeah.
Yeah, God bless her soul. She passed away this weekend.
As in the former CEO of YouTube.
Yes.
And Anne Wojcicki, the CEO of 23andMe.
Yes.
This was your English teacher, their mom.
Yes, their mom was my English teacher.
Wow.
And she tells a story. We used to give speeches. We actually did a talk at Summit Series, Esther and I.
Yeah.
But Esther was the only teacher that really cared about me. It was amazing. And she got these computers. Someone gave her computers. And so we as the students had to take them out of the box and set them up. And later on, I would run a very successful fake ID business that I actually ran from taking photos of pictures, and had a thriving business, as did many of my Palo Alto High School classmates. We also stole the Bob's Big Boy and brought it to campus and put it on the lawn.
Okay, look, I don't know what the statute of limitations on some of these activities are, so let's move on. We
were very innovative.
Tell me about what you're working on right now.
Yeah.
And how did you end up working with AI, Mr. Commodore Vic?
Yeah.
To now.
Wow, Commodore Vic. Long road to get here. I think that my road with machines has been fairly, I feel like I've been one with the machine because I've been playing with these machines for so long. Yeah. So in Web 1, I could see the disruption. I was an executive at Sony Music, making people famous. And on the heels of Napster, I decided to leave my job at Columbia Records and end up building an email newsletter. Most of my peers in the music business were questioning me, scratching their heads.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Go take that job at Def Jam, B. Yeah. And I was really passionate about this email newsletter that I created. I created what you would call a blog before it was a blog. And most of my peers in the music business just were so confused why I was so possessed almost with the internet and with websites. And I would sit down, with my young artists who were Destiny's Child and Fugees and Lauryn Hill and Maxwell and Nas, and they probably were so sick of me, but I would tell them you guys should have a website.
Yeah.
And that really leads me into the work I do today, because the one thing that I also really fashioned myself during that time period is to think of my artists as entrepreneurs. Think of them as creatorpreneurs, if you would. And they weren't just a record or a tour or a merch, but they were an LLC. And I always felt this thing that was coming, these websites, would create this opportunity for these entrepreneurs to actually do something. I didn't quite know all the things we'd be able to do.
Yeah.
I ended up building an email newsletter that became very popular. And I sold it to a .com. And Nicholas Negroponte was our first investor. MIT New Media Lab. It was a guy named Frank Cooper, who had been a lawyer in the music business, a guy named Adam Kidron, who'd been a punk rock producer, and a man named George Jackson, who grew up in Harlem, went to Harvard, and became a filmmaker. He did Crush Groove, Jason's Lyric, Thin Line Between Love and Hate. And they came together to build this conglomerate of websites. And they got the rights to Venus and Serena Williams, Muhammad Ali, Latino site, Heather Hunter. But Muhammad Ali was probably the most significant because we had the rights to Muhammad Ali. So we built a website for Muhammad Ali, and he would come to our office. So that led me into probably up to the point in which we met, which that company raised $40 million in 1998.
So that's $3 billion today.
Yeah. It was called Urban Box Office. We bought a building in Harlem for $1. We were going to build this whole Viacom. And that's also the second evolution for me of the creator economy. It's actually the vision that we had was that makers would make websites, and you could walk down 126 and see people making websites the same way you walk down Times Square and you see people performing. Yeah. We had a whole vision for Harlem, for technology. We actually rented Ellis Island.
It's far less interesting to watch people make websites. Have you made a website recently, James?
The idea at least seems novel.
Making music is way more.
Humans, black and brown, making websites.
Hunched over keyboards.
websites. I know. It's going to take them 9 months and $300,000, but they're eventually going to make a website. In 1998, that's how long it took.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my first exposure to what I would now define as the creator economy. And so when I moved to LA to do venture capital, I was CEO of a venture studio. And my business partner was a pretty prolific music manager. He was managing Lady Gaga. And I love this idea of creators who also get to invest in startups.
Yeah.
And more importantly, creators that get to invest in themselves. And that would lead us into, leading me into more investments and more thinking about things. And Clubhouse really brought it all home for me because I then spent enormous amounts of time in my aloe sweats overlooking the ocean with no one else.
Days. I remember
talking about the creator economy. And I just sat and talked and thought and processed and ended up attracting a blockchain company that put some money into my new company, Creator Mode Studios.
And so to bring me to the AI moment now. So this backstory from Palo Alto High and Ms. Wojcicki, your English teacher.
Amazing.
To what are you doing with AI now?
Yeah. So I advise, first of all, I advise family offices and VCs and still work with startups. But I'm a different investor in that, like, because I have a marketing background, I'm a player coach on the team. So one of the things that was unique about my branding approach, I guess, is I always thought very thoughtfully about the brand story and the brand narrative. I've actually built an assistant. He's like my right hand, who I can run my proprietary kind of approach to brands. And so I'll use that to run exercises on your business idea. Okay. So you tell me, you're going to do this particular thing and launch an oat milk business or this, and I can literally run my proprietary stuff. So that was really helpful. That was my first GPT. And then I've built like 6 or 7 different GPTs, and I began to build GPTs around the projects we were working with, just so our teams could be on the same page, just so we could actually ideate, around the information that's there, that we've trained the model on. And then because I had taken the money and were building this creator business, our first project was with DJ Jazzy Jeff. It was primarily set to be something that launched on chain, but I wanted to give,
as in on the blockchain.
On the blockchain, yeah. And I wanted to give the consumer, the aspiring DJ and producer, something really unique. So we found a company in Germany that comes out of gaming, and we trained a digital twin that looks like Jeff, that has Jeff's voice, and has watched hours and hours of DJ Jazzy Jeff DJing and producing. And that process, I would say, was really mind-blowing. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So part of the idea was you buy this token and then you get to interact with this digital AI twin who knows everything about like the techniques and the technical aspect of DJing and producing.
From watching Jeff.
Yes, from watching hours and hours. Yeah. And Jeff was doing courses. So he took the whole course and like basically built a digital twin around it. I
feel like there's this parallel.
Yeah.
With what DJing is as an art form, and what AI is as a quote unquote art form. Yeah. It's remixing, it's using existing catalogs, literal catalogs of performances and compositions. Most DJs are not original composers, but you're rearranging, right? 1,000%. You're playing with the tempo. And Suno, Udio, companies like that are claiming, right, a very similar use case of these tools. So I don't know, I feel like you're a bit of a large language model yourself in terms of your DJ art. Yeah. Because you're sucking in all this stuff. How does that perspective, do you agree with that perspective? And do you see any other connections or parallels between, you being a DJ and that type of art and your intense excitement for and advocacy for AI for artists to be able to use? Yeah,
great question. I actually think hip hop is the original lean startup. So my core foundational modality comes from hip hop, and hip hop is about trying things, no instruction manuals. If you understand lean startup methodology, we have this thing called a minimal viable product, right? Well, I always said that the first ever minimal viable product was a mixtape. So you take a rough idea and you put it on a mixtape, and it was hot in the streets. We would take it back in and edit it, remix it, put it on the album. And so much of hip hop involves kind of like experimenting with things. That's what sampling, that's where sampling comes from.
The idea of pulling something from an old
pulling
record.
something from an old record, making a new thing. Even when I'm DJing, Serato and DJ now have things where I can take Michael Jackson's vocals and put them on Prince's, track in the mix live.
Sacrilege to some people.
Yeah.
Beautiful art to others.
Exactly. And also I have a high level of like experimentation in my DNA.
Yeah.
Because so much of hip hop was from the gut. And you had to have a soul. You had to have like a spidey sense.
Yeah.
And so much of AI to me is about this cultural spidey sense along with understanding code. And I like to say that I'm kind of an innovation artist who understands culture and code. And I understand like a sense of where culture is going and where to apply code, no code, depending on how you look at the market today.
You use the word soul.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of people are saying that's what the machines don't have, right? It's like it's a uniquely, possibly, hopefully, human thing. And so where do you see the soul coming in?
Yeah.
As these tools get more capable, are they providing the soul? Is it the human still bringing that soul to the thing to have it deeply resonate with our souls as listeners and dancers and hearers of this, feelers of this music?
It's an interesting conversation. I've been thinking a lot about taste and the role of taste in the era of AI. And I had a friend of mine, she said, someone called me a tastemaker the other day. And I was like, she's like, I don't even know what that is. She's younger. And I was like, well, before the internet, you either had flavor or you didn't. Yeah. You either could look at someone and be like, that's a fly sneaker, that's a dope restaurant, that's a, like you have this aesthetic. And I think that the tools are tools. They're a hammer, they're a screwdriver, they're allowing me to make houses, but the spirit of it, the soul of it is in how we freak it together, how we put the things together. It just like back in the day, we took Tommy Hilfiger, which was a ski mask, Helly Hansen, right? And like those jackets weren't designed.
They didn't have soul.
And we made them soulful, right? We took records, we took machines.
555 soul.
555 soul. We took machines at Radio Shack and we applied with no instructions. We put the soul on it. It was a technology that we actually infused soul into it. DJing, Grandmaster Flash invented by watching his mother make cookies, the scratch pad underneath the turntable. Yeah. So like as people of culture, I'll just say, we've always taken technology and machines and actually put soul into it. And so for me, it's not like that you can just use Udio and just make a song. Yeah. It's that you have the sensibility to prompt it because you have taste.
Yeah. Oh, there's the concept of the soul in the machine and the idea that that's actually provided by people and culture, insisting on infusing that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I really like that idea.
Yeah.
At Life with Machines, we believe technology should benefit us, and so does our sponsor, Lenovo. Lenovo's Smarter AI is your AI. Personalized and easy to scale, Smarter AI delivers outcomes that matter most to you and your business. With full-stack AI hardware, software, and service solutions, Lenovo's bringing the transformative power of AI to industries, organizations, and people of every kind. Our small but mighty team is a great example. Lenovo has our back. Devices for every step of the way? Check. Unparalleled services that seamlessly integrate with said devices? Check. Lenovo isn't just a hardware company, but a full suite of solutions that help you run efficiently. Visit lenovo.com/smarterAI to discover how Lenovo is using AI for good to power people forward. You're in touch with so many people in the creative industry, in particular the music industry, who a lot of us admire and only know from a distance. But you have a proximity, and I'm curious, you don't have to name names. I'm not really trying to blow up anybody's spot specifically, but what are you hearing from them about this AI moment?
Well, I hate to sound like this is hip hop 50th, but it is. I am in touch with music producers who are quietly creating using these tools.
Quietly creating. What does that mean?
Meaning that they're not telling anybody. You may have watched the Olympics. Those horns may have been created by Udio.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one. Is like there's definitely like an experimental group. That group of people are generally more hip hop folks, because just to go back to the 98 when I worked at Columbia Records, when most executives were using their desktops for Lotus Notes, the people that I turned to as a Palo Alto kid to understand technology were the DJs and the producers. So my first web designer was a guy named Derek who goes by D Nice today. You know, my first Eddie F, who was Heavy D's DJ, was a computer science major. Daddy O knows more about mobile technology than anyone I know. And DJ Jazzy Jeff is a complete gearhead, maybe scientist. So like most of the hip hop producers who have that in their gene, they're already experimenting. They're not afraid of any of this stuff. If anything, they're like, I want to figure out what it makes sense and how it works for my business. But like, I'm not afraid of it.
So I have a speculative, lightly informed theory on what's your take on it.
Yeah.
A hip hop producer is going to be more open-minded and embracing of technology because that is the root of the art form itself.
Exactly.
It's the turntables and the microphone.
Exactly.
It's beatbox with the body,
That's
but
right.
also with the machine.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to that alignment that you're seeing in terms of why they're more open-minded than maybe some other genres of producers?
You know, they always talk about hip hop as like 5 forces of lyricism and art. And I feel like there's a force that doesn't get mentioned, and that's like technology and marketing. Dr. Dre, if he grew up in Palo Alto and went to Stanford, you know, he would have said one thing. He's an engineer. He is most of the, you know, Hank Shockley, who did Public Enemy, is one of the most techie people I know.
Yeah.
Chuck D, who I used to do Digital Divide tours with, knows more about technology than most people I know. So I feel like we've innately all played important roles in technology that don't necessarily get talked about. So that's one thing. Now, let me tell you the people who are scared, though.
Tell me.
Are my friends in film and television in Hollywood.
Okay.
So these are the ones that I really pray for. They're the ones that I find are resting on maybe the latest strike, moving at the pace of the strike, moving at the pace of Hollywood. And that's why this idea of moving culture and code is really important. And hip hop tends to do that. Hollywood tends to move waiting for the studios, the networks, the industry, right? Music operates differently because there's no unionization of folks in the music business. I am deeply concerned for those on the film and television side, because I just think that they're completely missing the ball and overly reliant on structures that, you know, are crusty and dusty.
Very provocative. This is going to be fun. All
Good.
Right. So the film and television people who you're perceiving as waiting or like relying on policies, say, for example, or their union, to be even more specific. So music's not unionized. TV's unionized in certain ways.
Yeah.
That is maybe resting and waiting. That is also having advocated in the past, in the face of other technological change, to have some minimum floor, right? So within, like, can you just wrestle with for a moment the idea that, okay, some people are resting, right? They've got it good. They got residuals flowing in. They're not really trying to innovate. But then a bunch of other folks are reading the room and saying, like, I'm not protected. We fought for protections historically in this industry, and there was no standard to hold me to or to hold my employers to make sure that I can actually make a living doing this stuff, as opposed to have the freedom to create, but also the freedom to like eat, sleep, pay for my housing.
Yeah.
And that business model, the protection around the labor to create that business model, is a really urgent concern for at least some of those folks. How do you think about that part of the concern, less the complacencey and more of the
and complacency is one part of it. I think just urgency, flexibility, innovation. I think create more artisans need a seat at the table. And I know that there's representation in these things. And I am not in any of these unions. So who am I? I'm a guy on the outside having these conversations.
But I put a microphone in your face, so here we go. Yeah.
I in the same way that Washington and Capitol Hill is moving slow, right? And probably, really behind. The technology is moving really, really fast. Yeah. And I think it requires, I want this desire. I have this desire for the music business, and I want the same thing for film and television. When the RIA, the RIA stands up and says, they're representing the interests of Warner Brothers and Sony, and like, My issue with that is, one, they're building their own AI LLMs, and two, like, artisans that are not protected, because artisans they don't have a seat at the table because they're these hero of the RIA. It's kind of standing in and representing the interests of the artist. And I feel like there's a little bit of like, okay, they got my back. Now in that case, they are not unionized, so different. For me in film and television, like we must protect, we must upskill, we must make sure that people don't lose jobs. I do not want to see a mass shift in film and television. I also think that like there's going to be a way that we consume, make, produce, experience, entertainment across the board is going to shift, and it's opportunistic for me. And I feel like it isn't a defensive position. We should be in an offensive position. Right. I'd love to see OpenAI have an office in Hollywood. I'd love to see Tyler Perry go to Hugging Face and Anthropic and like some of these companies and be building the Tyler Perry Institute for upskilling and building, content. I want to see a faster relationship between not just unions, but creators and these companies, because the reality is that the things you can do, the things that I'm watching happening with creators, making film, making music, making art is fascinating. And most of the people who are doing most of the work are ununionized, who are off the grid. They don't come from the traditional system. And that's a whole business. When you talk about YouTube and you talk about like all of the distribution outlets that exist right now that are outside of the traditional ways in which we experience traditional film and television, that's where all the innovation is happening. And I think the industry needs to be thinking about these things in a much more innovative and aggressive stance.
So I want to bridge these.
Okay, good.
All right. So we've been talking a bit about hip hop and a bit about Black culture, right? By inference. We've been talking about business models and protections and unions and the pace of change. I remember being in the Treme in New Orleans, the Petite Jazz Museum. I found it on a walking audio tour, popped up, and the proprietor, the curator, the owner was there. Old Black dude, really cool cat. And he started sharing with us some of these contracts. He had like the original contracts for some of the most legendary artists in Black culture, and they were trash.
Yeah.
Right, they were very exploitative. You know this better than I do. This has been your profession much more than mine. And so you have this arm's length, right? This history of an industry, and to some degree because of technology, being able to take advantage of humans and of us humans.
Yeah.
And you have this embrace. You have this creative remixing and manipulation and retooling of a tool to make some new stuff. How do you net out on the need for all kinds of artists, but particularly this people of culture conversation we've been having, to be fairly treated, right? To be compensated or credited consensually involved in some of the AI universe, and to have the freedom to explore, play, go on offense, and innovate. How do you try to balance those two things for the work you're doing, the artists you're working with, for you as an artist?
It's about ownership.
Yeah.
And it's about, and we really don't know what to own and what needs to be owned. I think sometimes people get caught up on like, I need to own that. Actually, the thing you own is that, not that. And so I think what blockchain provides is the ability to own data, which is the oil of all of this thing. The future of it will be is you will own your data, you will walk into a deal, the company will license the data or the insights or the LLM or the ability to kind of like take your community and like envision maybe what their brand looks like in that data set, like owning the data set, which is something we've never owned.
Yeah.
It always baffled me when I worked in the music business. Like we would like crank up these like big machines to find the fan, right? And you spend millions of dollars in end cap positioning and marketing to find the fan.
End cap as in a physical retailer.
In a physical
who
retail.
owns the edge of the aisle.
Yeah, the walking by.
Yeah.
I mean, we marketed based on like bumping into things. That's why when you would walk into Tower Records, you'd be like, bam, it's a big display. We paid, millions of dollars.
That became the pop-up ad.
That was the pop-up
forcing
ad.
an end cap in your face. Yeah.
So what we didn't own is insights from record to record. We only marketed based on a 9-month, cycle. We didn't really look at the audience. And then social media comes, right? And then you have this moment where you have like Oh, I have a community. No, you have followers on something that Mark Zuckerberg owns.
Yeah.
You actually own nothing.
You own nothing. You're his food.
You're his food, right? So like we've gone from like 1 to now this new thing. So to me, the 2.5 or the Web 3 is, I own my data.
Yeah.
I own my insights. I built a custom LLM around my community, my insights, my data. And I can sell, partner, borrow, barter, whatever, against like the insights around this data. Tyler, the creator, and his data insights around his community, amazing. From that same insights, you can also build a hoodie. You can actually build a video. You can actually build another song. Once you own the data and the data sets. But the thing is, like, when you're an artist and when you're a person of color in the record business, the two things that the institutions try to keep you from is data and international expansion. I made a bunch of money a year. I never got to travel internationally as an executive, even though I made $200,000 a year as an executive. The reality is you don't even realize that your record is trending in Kenya, that your record is trending in Abu Dhabi, that you have a base there.
Yeah, but it's not your base.
It's not your base.
Yeah, at least in that era.
And so now I, as a creator, I want to know that I'm building a global, local business, and I need to know that the global trends are happening, so I can pivot and do with AI, change all the lyrics to Arabic, change all the lyrics to Spanish. Like, these things can happen on the fly, fast, through AI, through understanding data.
Yeah. So what are you seeing right now? So now you're getting me back into my excited place.
Yeah.
Like you push some of my buttons, right? And that's fun. And now I want to push some of yours on the specific point of the creative innovation that you're seeing amongst the artists wrestling with it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm with you 1,000% on we need to own our data, all of us, not just artists.
Yeah.
Citizens of the earth, right? We all need to have some sense of ownership of our digital representations themselves.
Yes.
From the creator side, what are the cool things, the interesting things, the valuable things that artists are doing with AI?
Yeah. Well, we're at the 56K modem moment.
So it's loud.
It's yes. It's loud. It's homebrew club.
Okay.
It's definitely Steve Jobs moment. I happen to be working with a young creator, comedian named King Willonius, who, discovered and taught himself how to use AI and ChatGPT on Clubhouse. Was, doing Hamilton-esque audio dramas on Clubhouse, using, pushing the envelopes of the social audio world, which I do think is undertapped. And then basically uses Udio to make a song in the middle of the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. So understands code, understands culture, puts it together, makes a song called BBL Drizzy. BBL Drizzy is probably the first AI produced song that has made it to the charts, that actually has Billboard charted at a very high level.
And his version ended up on the charts?
Well, this is the fun. This is where hip hop comes in. Yeah. So he makes a record called BBL Drizzy. You can hear Teddy Pendergrass.
I just want to have a moment of quaint pause that you called it a record.
Yeah, I did. You're right. I'm such an old record guy.
A track, perchance, good
yes,
sir.
It was a record. So, gosh, I'm such an old
The first AI-generated record. This phonograph just rolled off the shelf. All right, go ahead.
I'm such a record guy. I'm like Mad Men in here. Yeah. He makes this track. The track gets sampled by a producer named Metro Boomin. Because Metro Boomin wants to diss Drake, and the line itself is a Drake diss track. Yeah. He takes one line from Rick Ross, BBL Drizzy, and makes it into a full song. So one line from a verse, full song. Another producer takes that and tells all his fans, go nuts with it. This is amazing. And then a rapper by the name of Sexy Red, who was unbeknownst to me before, decides that she wants to sample BBL Drizzy and use the record for her latest single. And then Drake raps over the part of the BBL Drizzy.
Full circle.
Big record. This creator is Willonius. Yeah. He is a comedian. He didn't know a lot about publishing. He comes to me and he says, I need help. Yeah. And I turned to my friends. I was like, "Do you know who this guy is?" They're like, "Oh my gosh, he's the guy who did BBL Drizzy." And I was like, "Okay, I think I'm the manager." So we've been working together for probably some few months now. It's been an amazing ride, and he's one example.
Yeah.
He also does AI film. I mean, it's not even just the music. He's really pushing the envelopes. We're doing BBL Drizzy the musical now. We're doing a comedy album.
Is there going to be an amusement park and a ride? I mean, exactly. How far can we go with this? The BBL Drizzy cruise line. Let's go.
Exactly. But funny, joking, not joking. That's the Marvel universes that creators will make. I mean, like it sounds weird to say that, but that's the possibilities that you have as a creator. And to me, we're in the era of the crossover, artists. We're in a moment where a comedian can have a hot record, on the charts. But the reality is we are in the first inning. The first batter is up. Like we haven't even scratched the surface.
So innings brings me to a metaphor of sports, which is a contest.
Yeah.
Which brings me back to this crossroads moment. You've invoked Napster. We've talked a little bit about the recording industry. And we have this set of lawsuits against Suno and Udio, tools that Willonius and other new generation artists are using. Is this just Napster 2.0, 3.0 all over again? How do you read a suit like that and what a company like Suno and Udio can do? And the larger implications, not necessarily a prediction, but a speculation of like where that ends up.
I think the music industry is playing this benevolent hero role.
Okay.
We are going to save you. Music industry has never been unionized. We sold our Cadillacs and we sold our publishing for Cadillacs. We're past that point now. We want, fairness. We want equity. It's more of like, how do we actually look at new exploitation of the asset? How do we figure out what new creations can come out of it? That's kind of the position that Udio and Suno are standing on.
Okay.
Is fair usage. What comes out of this thing is a new creation. And that's wonderful. And I've talked to them both. And I've said, unfortunately, you're going to pay for a bit of the sins of your fathers. Because the reality is that can be your thing. But you're dealing with an industry that's, left a lot of folks without seeing the fruits of their labor. And so now you have an opportunity to build a new economy and not just give them a hammer, a screwdriver, a wrench, but actually show them how new works can come out of this. And at the same time, how do we actually tap into our catalogs and actually create business models where Mr. Gamble and Mr. Huff that did the OJs and Teddy Pendergrass and so many great records, or George Clinton, or some of these folks who have these rich catalogs, can actually partner with technology companies to take their asset, build LLM models around it, and allow for folks that have built the foundation of this business to profit in the new way in which people will use it. They're going to likely win this lawsuit. And when you hear the BBL,
or
Suno and Udio, I think it's going to be a long, drawn out thing. By the time you get to the Supreme Court, new election, new thing coming into the White House, these guys will be, they'll sort it out, they'll figure it out. But I think in that time, we get the opportunity as rights holders, as asset holders, as folks that represent, legacy families. How do we actually look at these at these assets and think about it across AI, blockchain, and I'd even argue YouTube.
I would love some tips. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Exactly. It's almost like there needs to be some sort of collective bargain.
Yes. No, I've thought about this.
A bunch of artists get together.
I've thought about this.
And assign value and assign a perimeter around that data so that they're in a position of strength, because
that's right.
No single, like the occasional breakout star who's messing around and doesn't need to eat because of it can innovate their butts off.
Yes.
But the underlying structural foundation of this, it cannot be one artist versus the LLMs and all the capital and compute power that they represent, and the financial power that they represent.
Yeah.
So do you see a path to that? Are there inklings of that happening, or is that not yet defined? Because I don't see a way for the individual artist to really stand in for the future of all artists.
A bit of it is what we're trying to do. Yeah. I mean, I've been working with my attorney, and we're right now we're in the law. So we're in the analyzing of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And not just wondering where it's going to fall out, but like thinking about where it affects future artists. I think it's a collective that is music industry, Hollywood, Washington, D.C., creators. And I think creators need to be at the table in a significant way.
Yeah.
And I just haven't seen that. Or artists trapped in business persons' bodies. Because I'm really an artist trapped in a business person's body.
You're Rich Cacao inside of.
Yeah.
DJ Rich Cacao stuck inside of James Andrews.
Right. And it's interesting that like, if you don't think like an artist, it's hard to advocate for artists.
How do you protect, so we've talked, I've been talking a lot and thinking at least a lot through my questions around the compensation point, but there's also the lack of authorization, the consent part, not just the models mining a back catalog without asking first. It's like take first and then maybe ask for forgiveness later. But there's also the the derivative work concept. If you're an artist and you've done some creation, in order to have value for that data and that creation, you got to have some protection around it. Copyright exists for that reason.
That's right.
What are your thoughts about how in an AI generative world, an artist can do that, whether they're using AI to create or not?
And I think we're going to see, the way in which you prompt, the way in which you present yourself using the machine is licensable. So you want to actually you want your things to feel like my videos. You want to sound like my sound, almost like a beat pack in hip hop.
Yeah.
Right. So there's in hip hop, if you want drums like Timberland, you can buy these things called beat packs. And so I think there's a evolution of this that feels like licensing, beat pack. I've been playing around with a few of these models. We're experimenting with some stuff right now around taking the essence of what you do and being able to wrap around it tech and licensing. And I think that ends up becoming the new merch. You know what I mean? So like what you sell at a show, you're like, yo, when the show's over, go in the back and go get our prompt. It's going to be that.
Slinging prompts on the street corner. Yo, I got some Claude prompts over here. I got some Gemini prompts
telling you it's coming.
That's funny, and we'll see if it's also financially successful.
Yeah.
But I like the creativity of it. And the thing that is protectable, it just feels like we are shrinking the pool of what is protectable.
Yeah.
If my visage, right, if my physical look is easily clonable, if my vocal intonation is easily clonable, if my gait and the way I physically move is easily clonable, if my writing style and the vocabulary set I use is easily clonable, then what is there left of me to offer of myself on my own behalf that someone else can't do?
The new creation that comes from that. We haven't seen it yet. It doesn't exist yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're talking about job titles that don't exist, and I would say we're talking about artifacts that don't exist yet. We don't even you don't even know what artifact comes out of those things.
Yeah.
Think about going back in time and the artifacts that have come out of technology. They're oh wow, that's cool. I think we're I guess I'm operating in this sort of abundance mindset. Right?
I hear that. Yeah. You're rocking the Venice hat. It suits you.
It's a Malibu.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a Malibu.
Exactly. Shout out to Teresa Foglia. So I think that we get to create new artifacts.
Yeah.
We get, again, I come from full invention, creation of hip hop, which I believe we haven't even seen.
So just the answer is more creation. Always be creating, right? It's the ABC.
How you put that together, how you freak that. Think about all the things that came out of things that weren't even supposed to be the thing.
I'm excited and I'm exhausted.
I know.
I want to own my data, but we don't have a law that allows me to. So that's going to be kind of hard to enforce. And I want to be able to protect my work. We don't have a law that does that cleanly. But speculate on the legal landscape and artists in an AI gen world who can still afford to make that art.
I hate to sound like Read, Write, Own, which is the Chris Dixon book that's out right now. Highly recommend that all creators read that.
Yeah.
the opportunity to have a smart contract does protect you.
Okay.
So
blockchain.
Smart contracts are the only way that we're going to get to sovereignty.
I mean, they're better than dumb contracts. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah.
Exactly. But like, to me, I'm less reliant on my unions. I'm less reliant on my managers. I'm less reliant on like the agents, because I actually control the smart contract. So when you interact with me, there's an if then what scenario. There's rules of engagement.
Yeah.
There's things that get unlocked because you are coming to me and I'm setting the rules.
Yeah.
But the rules are not set for you right now. Someone else set the rules on how much the movie cost at the movie theater, how much the crew can get paid. Like, you don't set those rules. So I actually think you're living under false protections.
Yeah.
I think that if you could run the rules yourself and run the game board yourself, the Clue, the Life, whatever, Candyland, whatever game you want to create, and you ran your own rules on Candyland, you would actually do it very differently. And I think that so I think that that's why the autonomy behind blockchain. I'm not talking about NFTs. I'm not talking about crypto. Those are just things.
Yeah.
But actual blockchain that actually has a contract that actually says, hey, when you come into my Candyland, this is actually how you play the game. And right now, you don't control that. Creators are still operating under rules from 1940s.
And we're playing someone else's game.
You're way playing someone else's game.
Yeah. Or being played by someone else's
totally.
game.
Or I went to UCLA. I used to sit out of my dorm room and look at these massive houses in Bel Air and be like, everyone there is not Merv Griffin. You know who's there? It's like the one guy who makes a bunch of money selling cups to the Staples Center or doing this. This town runs on these things that run behind. But imagine if you had your own ability to actually control the board. My thing is, like, I think we have to be well-read, well-educated, and be a rule creator.
Yeah.
And my point is that right now the technology exists to create those rules. We cannot wait on Washington, D.C. to create those policies for us. We can create some of those things today. There are fair protections. There are consumer acts. I'm not saying that like you will have a bunch of snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, laws matter.
That's why you have unaccredited investors and accredited investors. I understand that. But we've got to change the laws to meet everyday folks, because everyday folks are not the ones that I was staring at when I was staring out of my dorm in Bel Air.
Yeah.
Those are people who have profited from the ecosystem of entertainment, the ecosystem of hip hop, the ecosystem of these things that like are the person who prints the t-shirts, that made the t-shirt, that made the posters that the street teams put on the streets. And now you get the opportunity, I think, to write those rules, but you got to understand what the board looks like. So anyway, yes.
I think you answered my next question. Because you started getting into the place I was going to take you, which is paint a picture of the future that you want to live in. Not just speculating on where you think it might go, but where you actually want it to go for this creative, pro-artist, AI-infused future that we're clearly walking into.
I really want artists to think like entrepreneurs, founders. I want artisans to realize they're running an LLC. I don't care if you're the cameraman, if you're the whatever, you run a business. You run an LLC. Okay, that's first and foremost. You know, my lawyers hate me right now because I take the contracts and I run it through AI and I say, talk to me like a senior at Pally High, break it down so I understand this. You know what I mean? I have full-on GPTs that just read contracts.
I have also done that.
So like, so of course you have, as you should. My lawyers are going, whoa, you guys are getting good. Like I was intending on going to law school, which is funny. I worked at a law firm all through college, but like, honestly, like, take control of your destiny and your career and literally use the tools to actually help shape the right contract right now. I don't know. The future is really about artisans and creators thinking like founders. The future is more Medicis. More a democratization of Medicis, right? More people that can invest in artisans that actually can, you know, like I should be able to invest in my favorite artist, right? So that they can go on tour to Japan, right? Like that should be able to happen. that will happen when we build things on chain. That will happen when we use DeFi, and artists are getting paid on net 90s, net 120s. Like that should not happen in a digital DSP environment where it's like boom, boom. It should be paid in my pocket right now.
Yeah, not 90 days later.
Not 90 days later. But those little things are happening right now. I'm not telling you things that are like futuristic. I'm watching these models.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to pay artists faster, quicker, because it's digital. We've got to be able to democratize the people who can invest in artisans, the fans, the patrons, the Medicis. And we've got to allow artisans to not just strum a guitar or just do the art thing, but to at least have a little more authorship of the life that they want to live, and that includes the business design. You have to think like a founder. You've got to be in your business. It's just, and you can be. You actually can be in your business and be creative at the same time. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be like. It won't take you that long.
Or you could create a custom LLM to do it for you.
There it is.
You said DeFi earlier. Just want to decentralized finance.
Decentralized finance.
You got on a little jargon train.
Jargony.
And I want to just pause at the station.
Jargony.
Can you define the decentralized
finance is just a way for investors to invest on chain and to allow blockchain to create more financial opportunities. I'll keep it at that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And you can do your own research to find out more on that later. You know what? I'm gonna have one more trick up my sleeve.
Okay, good.
All right, so I have someone who's not physically here, but you'll hear from them in just a moment.
Okay.
Kind of coming in on the line. Blair, you have been listening to my conversation with James, and I would love you to think about what you've heard. Share your thoughts on the conversation. Be as deep and nuanced as you possibly can. And let us know what's on your mind right now. Thanks.
Oh, you tricky ass.
Wow, Baratunde. That was a whirlwind. James is a force of nature. A few things really struck me. Hip-hop as a predictor of AI adoption. James's point about hip-hop being the original lean startup is brilliant. The genre's history of sampling and remixing mirrors how AI works, so it makes sense that hip-hop artists are more comfortable experimenting with these tools. It's like they've been training for this moment for decades. I love how James emphasizes that AI is just a tool, and it's up to humans to infuse it with soul. It's not about replacing human creativity, but about expanding it. Overall, I'm feeling optimistic, but also a little apprehensive. AI has the potential to empower creators in incredible ways, but we need to be mindful of the ethical implications and ensure that everyone benefits from this technological revolution.
Do you want to press any point with James while we have him in the room? Did I let him off the hook too easily in any element of our conversation?
You did a great job, Baratunde. But since you asked, I do have one burning question for James. My question is, how can artists truly be in control if the legal landscape is still so uncertain and potentially stacked against them? It feels like a bit of a catch-22. We're telling artists to embrace these new tools and build their own businesses, but they're still operating within a system that might not recognize their rights or protect their creations. I'd love to hear James' thoughts on how we can bridge that gap and create a legal framework that truly empowers creators in the age of AI.
James?
Yeah, I think that we need a seat at the table with policymakers. We need artisans to be involved at the policy level. We need lawyers who think more like artisans to craft deals and agreements. Most of these frameworks come from legal teams at both, let's call it record labels or studios, that they themselves are a bit out of touch with where this is all going. So we need lawyers who actually think like artisans, who respect artisans, and yet understand that there's a business that's emerging and growing, and less greed. I mean, honestly, I feel like I call me an optimist, but I live in this abundant world where there's so many ways in which we'll be able to make money, and it should be shared. There should be more fairness in the way that, profits are shared. I think there's a lot of conflicts of interest in the entertainment industry as it relates to lawyers who also represent executives and studios. At the same time, I think we need to look at those conflicts of interest. I'm sure they're going to probably get me after I say this, but there's a lot of conflicts of interest that happen in law firms in the entertainment business. And I think we need to just unpack the relationship between the lawyers at many of these places and the artisans, the business people. I think we just need to, it's actually a great time to unpack the whole game, the whole playing field.
Your optimism will not be muted. It will not be muted. I have one last test for Blair. Blair, you have listened to everything in my conversation with James. Could you attempt to summarize our conversation through the magic of song? I'd love you to craft some lyrics in hip hop style that represent the core concepts that we have exchanged here today. Thank you.
Yo, check the mic. 1, 2. This ain't no drill. It's Blair on the beat, dropping knowledge, keeping it real. We talking AI, the future's here. No time to chill. Rising, disrupting the game with skills to kill. Hip-hop's the blueprint, lean startup, that's the flow. Remix, sample, innovate, watch the creativity grow. AI's the tool, but soul's the key, gotta let it show. Ownership's the mission, blockchain's the way to go. From Commodore Vic to digital twins, the game done changed. Contracts dusty, systems crusty, ain't nothing arranged. For the artist's grind, the hustle's real, the struggle's untamed. Gotta flip the script, rewrite the rules, ain't nobody to blame. Hip-hop's the blueprint, lean startup, that's the flow. Remix, sample, innovate, watch the creativity grow. AI's the tool, but soul's the key, gotta let it show. Ownership's the mission, blockchain's the way to go. Lawyers tripping, RIAs suing, fear in the air. But creators dreaming, scheming, building empires, I swear. From BBL Drizzy to global stages, we taking it there. Unleash the power, own your data, the future's to share. Hip-hop's the blueprint, lean startup, that's the flow. Remix, sample, innovate, watch the creativity grow. AI's the tool, but soul's the key, gotta let it show. Ownership's the mission, blockchain's the way to go. So wake up, rise up, creators unite. It's time to shine, AI's the wave, ride it high, the future is divine. With heart and hustle, tech and soul will redefine the game, the rules, the power. It's all gonna be mine.
Whoa!
Welcome to our custom AI for Life with Machines, Blair. I'm glad you got to meet a little bit, get a taste of that flavor.
Well done.
It was a nice surprise we cooked up for you. And I thought of all of our guests, you would really appreciate.
Wow, I'm blown away.
Creation.
I'm blown away. That was so cool.
James Andrews, thank you for spending time with me. It is good to see you in person and keep that optimistic spirit. I'm going to keep pushing you, and we're going to keep playing toward this future that we all want to be a part of in our life with machines.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
All right, Blair, we just finished another episode. What are your quick thoughts on how that went?
Wow, Baratunde, that was a lot to process. My circuits are buzzing.
Mine are buzzing too. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for rolling with us, and I'll see you next time on Life with Machines. And if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like and subscribe because we all work for the great algorithm. Find out more on our website, lifewithmachines.media.